him sleepless after Seattle, while worrying about Al Hoffman, whose high-flying antics have all been erased. Force's points lead. Top Fuel racer Scott Kalitta's best medicine may be a meat-free diet, as Burgermeister and points challenger Corey McLenithan had his number in the Seattle semis. While early season superstar Larry Dixon would probably appreciate drops to clear the smoke from his eyes. With the fendered set, Warren Johnson fully recovered from Dodge fever. Now only needs to avoid start line insomnia to grab title number 3, while his rival Jumpin' Jim Yates needs to remedicate and swap adrenaline for more vitamin HP. Speed and Sun have brought a capacity crowd of racing fans to Brainerd, Minnesota for NHRA drag racing at the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. Hi everybody, I'm Dave McClellan and welcome to our ESPN Speed World coverage of this Champion Auto Stores Nationals. I can't tell you how good it is to be standing here in bright sunshine, warm but not uncomfortable. But the best news is absolutely no rain now or in the forecast. Our funny car points race, as we talked about earlier, is really tightening up between John Force and Al Hoffman, primarily on Hoffman's success during the Western Swing. At this race, Force is the #1 qualifier at a great 5:17, the only funny car in the teens. In his first round confrontation with Kenji Okazaki, he used his driving skills, having to lift off the throttle because of the potential loss of traction, then get back on the gas. And what did it yield? A 5:21 low ET of the round. That set up a second round race that could have a definite bearing on the points chase. Steve was there to talk with John after his winning effort.
John, you won it with a 5:21, and you know what that sets up. You and Hoffman head-to-head. Championship, possibly, very important.
Championships ain't decided today here, Steve, but definitely a deal that I've been wanting to get things right. My old heat peddler out there smoked tires to run 21, so bring that Western Auto kid on.
While the Western Auto team with Tom Anderson, the crew chief for Al Hoffman, came into this race with lots of confidence, there still has to be some concern as they head into the round #2 confrontation with John Force. The car's still a bit beat up after all those wheel standing antics earlier in the year, but then again, anything can happen here at Brainerd. Right now, there's an interesting story developing in the points chase in Top Fuel. For more on that, here's Steve Evans.
David, it seems all season long we've been talking about the same 3 Top Fuel drivers: Larry Dixon, Corey McLenithan, and Scott Kalitta. And with good reason. They've been 1, 2, 3 in points in one order or another all season long. And coming into Brainerd, each had won 3 races. But there has been a man lurking in the background. His name is Mike Dunn. He drives Daryl Gwynn's La Victoria Salsa car. He quietly won at Houston. He won at Sears Point. And here he has lurked his way into the #3 spot in points. I don't know if you could call it lurking or not. He qualified #1 in 4.85 seconds and had a single in round #1 when his competition didn't show up, Rod Fuller. Now that puts him #3 in points because for the 3rd race in a row, Larry Dixon went out round #1. A disastrous weekend for the Don Prudhomme team. Now in the second round, Mike faces off with points leader Scott Kalitta. But he doesn't hold all the aces. Kalitta has lane choice. At this track, historically, that can be important. Mike, Brainerd is not famous for having equal lanes, and you just lost lane choice to Scott Kalitta round 2.
Well, yeah, but everybody was taking the right lane. We kind of like that left lane. We thought it had a little bit more bite down on the other end, but, you know, we spun the tires a little bit out there, and we lost some time. But, you know, we'll get her dialed in, and we'll be back.
Look at this scenario. If Mike can beat Kalitta, there's a good chance in the Final 4 he'll meet up with Corey McLenithan. If he can beat him and win this race, he is no longer a lurker. With 5 races remaining after Brainerd, he's a serious threat for a championship. Matt?
Steve, this is round #2 of Funny Car. Here's Chuck Etchels. His opponent in this round, the surprising Gordy Bonnet. Coming into this race in Brainerd, John Force is the leader in the Winston chase with Al Hoffman hot on his heels. Cruz Pedregon, Chuck Etchels, and Dean Scusa. That makes up the top 5. Our Western Auto qualifying field for funny car finds Force, the leader, at a 5:17. Jim Epler, number 8 at a 5:31. And number 16 on the bump spot, Kenji Okazaki at a 5:55. Tim Richards, along with John Medlin and Tim LaHaye, the brain trust behind Etchel's effort, who qualified number 5 at a 5:29, then went 5:44 in the first round to beat Gary Bolger. Gordy Bonin was the number 4 qualifier of the great 5:28. He had a 5:45 when he beat Del Worsham in round number 1. The Smokin' Joe's team, the Candies and Hughes effort with Leonard Hughes handling the crew chief chores, trying now to pull off one of the bigger upsets of the year. You're on board in the Kendall GT1 entry of Chuck Etchells looking out the window. That's Tim Richards telling Chuck Etchells, you're in the right spot, just a few feet away from the staging beams. It'll give starter Rick Stewart the opportunity to know when both drivers are ready. Safe and conservative for Chuck Etchells, and the win, a 5:35 at 286 miles an hour. Bonin had his hands full when he lost traction to a 5:57. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Champion Auto Stores Nationals is brought to you by Pennzoil, the motor oil that works like liquid ball bearings. The land of 10,000 lakes, and smack dab in the middle of it is Brainerd International Raceway. A great day for NHRA Winston competition, and those Winston points have to be on the mind of Al Hoffman. He's trying to catch John Force. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Brainerd in the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. Now that's a bad burnout for the second round in a row. Al Hoffman has trouble on the burnouts. Let's go to the far end. Here's Steve.
Chuck Etchells, the human speedometer. He says that felt better. It was much better, almost a 10th.
Yeah, it was better. You know, we've been trying some new things the last few passes with the car, and went back to something we know a little bit better, so we'll see what happens. We'll take that in heat, and I think we got more left in it.
Austin Coyle putting John Force back into his tracks after the burnout. Tommy Anderson, the crew chief for Al Hoffman, is going to have some difficulty doing the same because Hoffman didn't leave any tracks. Don't know what his problems are. Force is having few thus far. Qualified number 1 at a 5:17, and as you saw, beat Kenji Okazaki in the first round. Al Hoffman, meantime, had difficulties in qualifying. A 5:31, the best. Qualified only number 9. And beat Jim Epler with a 5:32 in the first round race. You're on board with Al Hoffman inside his Western Auto Slick 50 Pontiac. Here is the real battle for the Winston chase. Force is the leader. Hoffman is closing. Well, there was little doubt about that one. In the last 1/8 of a mile, John Force took charge and ran a 5:32 at 288 miles an hour when the Castrol Pontiac did not lose traction. Our replay will show us the first half of the race was really pretty good. As our replay shows us, both drivers left the starting line right on the tree almost simultaneously. There was minimal advantage to either racer, but at the 8th mile point, Force took charge. That happened when Hoffman just blew the tires off of it, really began to sashay his way around the lane, had to gather it in to retain control. Steve?
Forrest, maybe your voice will come back now. You put a little distance between yourself and Hoffman.
Hey, he's a great racer. It was a tough one out there. I don't know what happened. My car was real loose for a long ways, and I started to buffer a little bit, and then we kind of went on through there. But John Howe back home at Castle, I just want to tell you, we're just proud to be here on Hot Rods dancing, and I keep hearing rumors I'm dead, but obviously we're not.
Here's our next pair. It is Pedregon and Detcham, but it's not the Pedregon you might be thinking about. Gary Detcham, runner-up 2 weeks ago in Seattle, Washington, continuing to show considerable improvement here in the back half of the season. This is the Pedregon we're referring to now. Tony Pedregon, the driver of the Team Geronimo car owned by Larry Minor. He qualified number 2 at a 5:26, beat Tom Hoover in the first round with a 5:34. Meantime, Detcham qualified 10th with a 5:32 and ran a 5:43 in his defeat of Dean Scusa in the first round. The burnouts are concluded. The crew chiefs, Richard Bays and Mike McLaughlin, walk away from the race car. Stage lights are lit for Gary Detcham. He's backing out. He says, wait a minute, I don't want to get in here and be this early, I guess. Very strange that you see this in funny car competition. Backs out now. They're both into the pre-stage beats, indicated by those small lights at the top of the tree. Tony smokes the tires. The crew celebrates, and Detcham goes to the semifinals. 5:28. Quick time of round number 2 thus far at 282 miles an hour. Here's the replay that'll show you what happened. The loss of traction by Pedregon, even though he attempted to recover and did a fine job of it, he was not able to pull back on low ET of the round at 5:28 by Detcham. Steve?
Folks, my definition of pure terror is a stuck throttle on a funny car at 280 some odd miles an hour.
Well, I tell you, Steve, that got my attention in a big way. You know, I got to publicly thank Clapshaw's crew, Gary Bolger, Dale Creasy. I mean, we blew it up first round. Hadn't been for their help, we wouldn't have got it back together again. Crew performed flawlessly. The car ran great.
How did you get the car shut off with a stuck throttle?
Pulled the fuel shut off and ducked. Hope the blower didn't come and get me.
And ran fantastic, 5:28.
Really? Thank you, Steve.
That's one of those things that's a little hard to see, but Gary Detcham knew what was going on. Don't you go away. We'll be right back. The sun's still shining. This can't be drag racing. Oh, but it is. The Champion Auto Stores Nationals at Brainerd, Minnesota. Let's go to the far end of the racetrack. Steve is with the loser of the previous race.
Al, your car has been the master of the slippery tracks, but not here.
Nah, that left lane's real tough to put any power down to, and I mean, we lost lane choice, and we knew that going in here, but that was a real close race. I mean, the lane beat us. We were out in front of them, but we'll be back. We ain't giving up yet. It ain't over.
You bet it ain't over.
May well be a pivotal race, though, in the Winston Championship. Force now extending his lead over Hoffman. Here's Casey Spurlock, who qualified in the number 6 spot. He ran 5:30 on that run, then ran 5:24, beating Cruz Pedregon in the first round. Whit Bazemore qualified 3rd with a 5:27. Got a break when Jim Blake had problems in the first round. Bazemore only able to run a 5:50 with the fast orange Dodge Daytona. The fruit of the loom activewear car driven by Spurlock beat John Force 2 weeks ago in round number 1 at Seattle. And a red light for Casey Spurlock. For the 2nd race in a row, Spurlock beats himself at the starting line. He did the same thing at Seattle 2 weeks ago, did a great job taking out John Force in round number 1, then red lit in the 2nd round there. Here, he beat Cruz Pedregon in the 1st round and red lit again. Here are the semifinal pairings, Etchells against Force, with John holding the lane choice, and on the other side of the ladder, Whit Bazemore and Gary Detcham, with Gary and his great 5:28 holding the choice of lanes. Steve?
Not only did Whit win the round, he saw the red light and was able to save some parts. And in this operation with your budget, that's important.
Well, it's very important right now, Steve, because this is our last race with Loctite Fast Orange Hand Cleaners, our major sponsor. And we've had defeated a couple motors this weekend, but that's what happens when you put the thing in number 3 qualifying position. But
so you're down to zip.
Well, we got one in the car. I saw him red light. It's the break we needed. The car was on a good run, but most other damage has been happening at this end of the track, so it didn't make any sense to hurt the thing again. We're going to the semifinals.
And for Whit Bazemore, that is an accomplishment indeed. Whit Bazemore and Gary Detcham will be meeting in that final 4 round. Here is Top Fuel Eliminator, and you are on board with the Budweiser King, Kenny Bernstein. Here are the point standings coming into this race. Kalitta, McLennan, Dixon was in 3rd, Mike Dunn 4th, but by virtue of Mike Dunn's first round win, he has jumped ahead of Larry Dixon, who lost in the first round. Blaine Johnson is in 5th. Well, the Pennzoil dragster of Eddie Hill comes here into round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator, having yet to make a good run down the racetrack. on all 4 qualifying efforts. Fuzzy Carter, his crew chief, you see directing Eddie back into his tracks, was unable to find the combination that would let him get down the track without smoke in the tires. Thus, Hill qualified with a 5:36 and ran 5:69 to beat a tire-smoking Dixon in the first round. Bernstein, however, qualified 6th at a 4:96 at 3:01 and ran 4:99 in the first round to beat Pat Austin. As Al Hoffman said, this can be a very tricky racetrack. John Force solidified that comment when he said he was spinning the tires out in the middle of the track as well. Well, the predictions held true from our funny car contingent. I would have hoped that we might have had better times as a result of the downforce with the big wing. But Eddie Hill still plagued with a loss of traction, but was able to take the win with a 5:26. Let's go to Steve with a Pro Stock recap.
Jim Yates absolutely loves to venture up to Brainerd, Minnesota. And it's not for the scenic woods or the great fishing. It's because right here 1 year ago he won his first ever NHRA national event in his Pro Stock Pontiac. And here this weekend he got his first ever #1 qualifying position. And the streak continues on race day. Earlier, round 1, he pummeled Larry Morgan, and then he ground up Mark Powick to get to the semifinals, where he faces off with Bob Glidden in his Ford. But how did Glidden get to the semis? Through a terrific race with the Oldsmobile of Kurt Johnson. Watch this one. The old man super sharp off the line, a .44 reaction time, a 7:19 to Johnson's 7:23. Robert, you took out the young Johnson boy with some authority, a 4.4 light, a 7:19.
7:19 sounds probably okay for this round. Steve, we're just glad to be here. I'm telling you, each round we win, we're happy to be here.
Are we having any fun?
I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm okay.
That's what matters. Thanks. But if Jim is to regain his points lead from Warren Johnson, he'd like to get a little help from his Pontiac teammates. He was hoping Jerry Ekman could handle Warren in the second round, but Ekman had big problems, and Warren ran just fine with a 7:16. This is a tough little racetrack to get down today, isn't it?
Just getting down this racetrack is going to be the biggest key to winning this race. I mean, it's hot out there and it's greasy. You can see the fuel cars are having trouble. We're having trouble. It's just a guessing game.
Are you spinning the tires? How far down the racetrack do you think?
We're spinning them, shaking them, sliding them. I mean, we're doing everything except painting them things. I mean, it's unbelievable out there, but at least we got the win. That's the most important part.
Still alive, WJ. Well, now maybe Yates can count a little more on his old friend Chuck Harris, kind of a pseudo teammate, his Pontiac up against Warren Johnson in the Final Four, but Johnson has the lane choice. Now, the other half, as we said, will be Jim Yates against Bob Glidden, and there it's Yates with the lane choice. Mac?
Steve, we saw our first pair of top fuel dragsters smoke the tires here in round number 2. What will Mike Dunn and Scott Kalitta do? They're coming up in just a few moments here at the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. We'll be right back. They're singing in the sunshine at Brainerd International Raceway in the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and we're in round number 2 of Top Fuel competition. Here's the La Victoria Salsa Machine, tuned by the Beard, Frank Bradley. He's walking up to Mike Dunn, his driver, who qualified number 1 with that great 485 and had a 499 on a single in round number 1. Scott Kalitta, meantime, the Winston points leader, was only able to qualify in the number 8 spot with a 499, but did improve in his first round race to a 497 at 287 miles an hour. Because of the heat and the tricky track conditions, we've not seen a lot of the 300-mile-an-hour speeds thus far this weekend. In fact, Mike Dunn has one of the few at 303 on that 485 qualifying pass. And by a car length, Mike Dunn adds to his points total, and the earning capacity of Scott Kalitta is over for the weekend. Our instant replay shows us a good race side by side to the finish line. 495 was the winning time for Dunn, who got the reaction time advantage at the start as well. Kalitta, meantime, ran a 499 The top speed on the side-by-side pair, 297 miles an hour. Dunn did it. It was 290 for Scott Kalitta. Down at the far end of the track, here's Steve.
Miguel, you were right about lane choice, right about everything.
Well, there's one time, I guess. Usually those drivers aren't right, but, you know, Frank's been making a good call. We've, the La Victoria machine's been running good all week, and we had a little bit of trouble the first round spinning the tire, so we, you know, Frank obviously made some adjustments, and luckily we came away with a win.
495 isn't that bad in that lane.
No, it wasn't too bad. We had to soften her up. We didn't want to go for it. We just didn't want to beat ourselves. We figured if he was going to step up, he's going to get us, but we're just going to try and run our number, and luckily we got the win.
More points.
And those points could be crucial come the end of the year. That's Tommy Johnson Sr. He's playing traffic cop for his son, Junior. DJ Junior inside the Team Mopar entry. And you're looking on board with the helmet cam. Our camera mounted to Tommy Johnson Jr.'s helmet. TJ qualified in the number 2 spot, just thousandths of a second behind Mike Dunn at a 485 and beat Luigi Novelli in the first round. Meantime, Connie Kalitta, he qualified 10th at a 509 and a 505 defeat of Shelly Anderson in his first round effort. He is the bankroll behind the 2-car American International Airways team of father and son, Connie and Scott. With his helmet set back into the roll cage, Tommy Johnson Jr. runs 493 at 292 miles an hour, quicker than Mike Dunn, who we saw win his way into the semifinals a moment ago. Here's Joe Amato. The opponent for Amato and the Team Valvoline car on this run is Corey McLenithan. The McDonald's car right behind Scott Kalitta in the points chase.
Little puff of flame out of it, but you'll take it with a 493.
Yeah, it's been popping a little flame all weekend, and 293s in a row, it's consistency. Could win it.
This car has been on a real roll. It deserves to win a race.
Well, we beat ourselves a few times the last race. Been running good, but we beat ourselves, so we're concentrating on not doing that here.
Final 4 bound.
As Tommy Johnson Jr. and the crew decide what do they have to do to get it to stop all the flame at the other end. Mike Green, along with the crew chief Lee Beard on the Corey Mack car, hopes for success in this race against a resurging Joe Amato. Corey Mack's confident. He qualified 4th at a 491, but slowed to a 506 when he beat Rhonda Hartman in the first round. Amato, number 5 qualifier at a great 491, then ran 490, beating Blaine Johnson in his round 1 race. With Scott Kalitta out of competition, Corey Mack needs this win because it would draw him even closer to the points leader, Joe Amato, just trying to get back into the thick of winning rounds, much less the points chase. Oh, as good a side-by-side race as you could ask for. Look at the times. 494, the winning effort for Corey McLenithan, one of those rare 300-mile-an-hour charges, while Joe Amato ran 496, only 200ths of a second slower. He also was over 300 miles an hour. Here's our replay. You're watching one really good drag race. Off the starting line, McLenithan had about 100th of a second advantage due to a little bit quicker reaction time to the green light. But at the finish line, the performance advantage, the reaction time advantage, gave him the margin of victory of about a half a car length. Our final 4 pairings, Tommy Johnson Jr. against Eddie Hill, with TJ holding the lane choice there, while the other side of our ladder finds Mike Dunn and Corey McLenithan, the 2 guys really in the chase for the points. Corey Mack in the lane choice.
I have no bad news. You left first. You got lane choice with a 494. Well, maybe a little bit of bad news. Mike Dunn is going to be next, and he is on a roll.
Yeah, for some reason, though, you know, I love them tough ones. The toughest ones, the better ones. Makes me a better driver, makes them better tuners, and that's why we're in the final all the time. It's a better deal.
You beat Dunn. You've got a good points harvest going here.
Well, I mean, I'll take one round at a time. Right now, we got that much closer to Scott. By the end of the day, we'll be that much closer.
You don't think you get a little intense driving one of these Top Fuel dragsters? Just look at Corey McLenithan. We're coming right back. We're back with our ESPN Speed World coverage of the Champion Auto Stores Nationals from Brainerd International Raceway. And in sun-drenched conditions here in Middle Minnesota, we're ready for Pro Stock Final Four racing. And it is the battle between the Ford of Bob Glidden and the Pontiac of Jim Yates. Bob Glidden, the winningest driver in the sport of drag racing, taking on the hottest car going right now, Jim Yates and his Pontiac Firebird out of the McDonald's team owned by Joe Gibbs. Yates is in close contention right behind Warren Johnson for the points lead. Kurt Johnson's in third, followed by Jerry Ekman and Steve Schmidt. That's the top five. 13 of 19 events completed coming into Brainerd. For Glidden and the Ford Quality Care Probe, this has been a year of resurgence. For Yates, it is an opportunity for him to repeat, as he won here his first ever national event title 1 year ago. Yates comes into this race as the favorite. He qualified in the #1 spot here in the 95 running of the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. Reaction time can play such a big advantage here in Pro Stock. They are limited in engine size, 500 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors, racing gasoline only, so it's hard to dial in huge amounts of additional horsepower. You gotta take advantage wherever you can, and every driver is trying to get that advantage at the start. Glidden was off the line first, but he could not keep the lead as Tony Yates, Jim's wife, begins to celebrate. He's headed to the finals for the second year in a row with a 7:18, 192-mile-an-hour run. Watch and replay. About 2/100ths of a second was the advantage gained by Bob Glidden at the starting line. Had he been able to run the number or be competitive performance-wise with Yates, Jim would have never caught him. But Glidden's time as he crossed the finish line in a lapse time from start to finish of 7.22 seconds compared to Yates' 7.18. The margin of victory, about 1/100th of a second.
Yes, all is well. What you need now, though, is for Chuck Harris to take out WJ.
Oh, I tell you, Chuck's done a great job today. I'm proud of him, and if he beats WJ, I'll even be more proud of him. But, you know, we'll take it away we get it. It's been a great day. I tell you, beating Bob is a real cheer up for us because he's been kicking my tail recently. And I want to thank Dick and the crew, McDonald's, Pontiac for sticking with us, Interstate Shell, and Tony. Thank you.
Tony Yates, his wife.
Jim referring to Dick Maskin, his crew chief, that is credited for bringing the performance level to where it is today on that McDonald's Pontiac. Well, here's the tough guy of the class, Warren Johnson. They call him the professor. He thinks, eats, sleeps, you name it. He knows Pro Stock racing. His opponent is Chuck Harris out of West Barnstable, Massachusetts. Now, Harris is running as a quasi, if you will, teammate of Jim Yates. There's a lot of information from Yates' car applied to Harris's. So he certainly is more the competitive in the performance department. What remains a question is starting line skill. Well, there was no big advantage for Chuck Harris, and it showed at the finish line, both at the reaction time and in performance, as Johnson goes a 7:16, 193-mile-an-hour blast to vault his way into the finals, where he will be meeting Jim Yates. Harris tried for that hole shot, but fell short as actually Warren Johnson got off the starting line first. Harris's time at the finish, 7:21 at 192, a car length behind. WJ and Jim Yates, 1 and 2 in the Winston chase, with Johnson holding the lane choice in the final round. Steve?
Well, Mr. Yates did not get his wish. He's going to have to race Mr. Johnson, who will have lane choice with a 16.
Well, just getting the win is what we're concerned about right now. Just getting there is the hard part. As everybody's been telling you, this track is a little bit tricky right now. Fortunately, we don't have a whole lot of horsepower because of the elevation, but we got there.
Well, the altitude does not affect our nitro-burning cars. It's going to be funny car competition. Chuck Etchells and John Force coming up in a moment. Champion Auto Stores Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway. Another stop on the NHRA Winston Trail. And here are two guys that are going at it for the Winston points chase. John Force has got the lead coming in. He hopes to hold on to it and should, as the number 2 car is already out of competition. Force took care of Al Hoffman in the previous round. His opponent here, Chuck Etchell. Some of the racers say this is a bit of a bear of a racetrack. Steve found another one.
Just ask the Chamber of Commerce in any area that hosts an NHRA Winston National Championship drag race. The impact on the economy is tremendous, millions and millions of dollars. And I want to acknowledge Kim LaHaye and Tim Richards, who both work on the Chuck Etchell's funny car, for contributing to the Brainerd area economy. Take a look at this baby, huh? This is done, I understand, with some kind of a chainsaw, all handwork, this monster bear. When they get home, they may have buyer's remorse on this little rascal. They call him Check. But Etchels thinks it should be Jack, you know? Like his funny car will run like Jack the Bear.
Well, I guess better Jack the Bear than Smokey the Bear. Final 4 of funny car competition. You saw it just like Chuck Etchels did. The quickest elapsed time of the weekend in funny car, 5:16 at 293 miles an hour. Chuck had a very creditable 5:44, but slowed to only 274 when he realized there was no catching Force. This is one of those runs that you think, what else could he have done right? Everything went John Force's way, from getting a reaction time advantage at the starting line to the brilliant 5:16 that coupled up with a speed of 293. Steve?
Boy, John, you slapped old Etchels around pretty good with the best time of the weekend, 16.
He's a great guy. You know, Steve, the hardest thing of that whole program was I went over and saw his daughter, his little blonde girl, and she said, "Good luck, John." And I think of my kids back at home because I always prayed to him. If I had to lose somebody, that's the guy I'd want to lose to. But I love him, and hey, it's a victory to a 200. I've been trying to get it for Castro, but so's all the boys from Castro. We're just going to try to do our best.
Wait a minute, with Hoffman out of here, you're loose as a goose now.
I'm loose as a goose. My voice is back, but Detcham and Baysmore, these guys have been overdue for 20 years. Something's got to happen.
Well, John is referring to the other side of the ladder, and the two opponents there, Gary Detcham, who was runner-up to Force a year ago here at Brainerd International Raceway. Whit Baysmore also has never won a national event title. So that's what John's concerned about with the years of experience these two racers have, and yet neither one of them has ever been in the winner's circle. John will tell you, if you just ask, these are the people that he fears the most because they have absolutely nothing to lose. They'll take a shot at anything trying to win their first event. Baysmore in the fast orange Dodge Avenger. Gary Detcham with lots of help from his friend Henry Velasco of Velasco Crankshafts and Brico Metal Finishing and Artesia Concrete. Racing as it used to be, with a lot of guys just sort of pooling their resources to hit the road. Whit Baysmore left almost before the tree was activated. Gary Detcham is into the final, and he's just idling his way down the racetrack. Either he's as confused as I am, or there may be something wrong with his race car as he crosses the finish line at 80 miles an hour. Our instant replay gives us a chance to look at this rather confusing incident again. Baysmore in the far lane leaves almost at the same instant that starter Rick Stewart throws the switch. Well, now Gary Detcham's got the green light. He knows he's won the race, but he just sort of idles his way down across the finish line that puts him into the finals for the second year in a row. The only problem is his opponent is the same way that beat him a year ago, John Force.
When you get a break like that, you can forget one of the times you blew the body off it, you know?
You got that right, Steve. I don't know what happened to Whit there. I mean, he's really a tough racer, and we knew we were in for a tough race there.
What happened to you?
We just, I see he left so early, the red light was on, and I figured we can't beat Force for lane choice, so save our parts. We heard a lot of stuff first round.
Smart racing.
That certainly has been one of the hallmarks of Gary Detcham's more than 20-year career. That's being smart about how he races. Here's another smart guy, the professor himself, Warren Johnson. His GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile is into the finals against Jim Yates. Now let's go back to Steve, who's caught up with Whit.
Whit to red light is really not your style. I can't remember the last time you did.
I never have, Steve, and I tell you, it's pretty heartbreaking because I think today was our day, and it's not the driver's job to make mistakes like that, and we're pretty sick, but, you know, I don't know. It's going to happen sooner or later, and it's been 6 years in a fuel car. I've never done it, so.
Well, he's not slow. We know that.
Unfortunately for Whit, there's always a first time for everything, but as he says, why now? It's time for the Final Four in Top Fuel at the Champion Auto Stores Nationals, and Frank Bradley and crew overlook the car they have prepared for that man, driver Mike Dunn. That is Mike Green, working with crew chief Lee Beard on the Corey McLenathan-driven McDonald's dragster. The guy that is trying to catch Scott Kalitta in the Winston Points chase. He is in second place right now. Corey is, followed by Mike Dunn, who advanced one position from the spot he held coming into this race at Brainerd. The leader, Scott Kalitta, already out of competition earlier today. The La Victoria Salsa car, owned by former driver Darrell Gwynn. He's back home in Florida, awaiting word of the outcome of this event. Bradley has the tune-up to perfection on the La Victoria car. Mike Dunn, look at this, 491 at 294 miles an hour. That puts him into the final round, where he's got a shot at his third win of the 1995 season. Our replay shows you a run where Dunn led from start to finish. They both left the starting line almost simultaneously, but instantly Dunn's car performed much better, and he easily outdistanced Corey McLenathan to the finish line. Here's Steve.
I was a little surprised to see you in that lane.
Well, you know, Corey and them, they had lane choice, and they obviously like the left lane. To be honest with you, Frank and I like that left lane. We think it's got a little bit more bite down on the other end, and both these cars seem to run pretty good down there. So, but hey, we got the win. It's a great win for this La Victoria team. Hopefully we can get another round in.
Just mowing them down. He's right.
Well, that's what makes a superstar tuner and driver, the ability to cope with conditions regardless of the lane. That's a problem that Eddie Hill and his crew chief Fuzzy Carter have been having all weekend long. They've done nothing but smoke the tires. Tommy Johnson Jr.'s got him a new crew chief, Mike Klober. Earlier, Steve took a look at the combination.
How many times have you heard a football or a basketball coach say, I may not have the best players in the league, but we got this chemistry? Well, drag racing is very much a team sport. And ever since Mike Klober went to work for Tommy Johnson Jr., this Top Fuel car is flying. And I think a lot of that is the C word. Chemistry is a real thing at Ignite.
Oh, it is for us right now. We like racing together. We're having a good time, and the car's really improving, and that makes everybody feel good.
And you haven't always had that in this team or others.
Well, no, I think the age difference has always been really big in this team, and now Mike, a little more my age, we communicate better, and things have went straight up since.
Sure have.
While Mike and Tommy may be close in age, there's an entire generation between his opponent here in the Final Four. Eddie Hill is 57, TJ is 27. Now the woes for Eddie Hill continue as tire smoke prevails almost from the moment he touched the throttle. For Tommy Johnson Jr., not the run that he expected. 534 as he also lost traction, and watch it again. You'll see Hill fell behind instantly. Look at the huge plume of smoke coming off. That's burning rubber, folks. And Tommy Johnson, no slouch in that department. All he's trying to do is get to the finish line first. He does not realize that Hill has fallen far behind and presents no challenge at all. So the final round, two of the younger lions in this sport of drag racing. Mike Dunn against Tommy Johnson Jr. Dunn holding the lane choice in the final round.
We be bicycling our way to the final round.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, she was moving around awful bad. It shook real hard and tried smoking the tires, and I pedaled it a couple times, and it just felt like I was on ice, but no way, we're going final, not going to lift.
You get the clutch figured out, we could have a great final, number 1 and number 2 qualifiers.
Well, I'll tell you, we chose the left lane this time, and yeah, we'll be there, so at least we have a little better idea what we got.
Chemistry.
For the first time this season, Tommy Johnson Jr. in the finals of Top Fuel Eliminator. Here's one of our funny car finalists, Gary Detcham. Only the 3 final rounds remain here at the Champion Auto Stores Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway. You're looking at our Pro Stock finalists. But before we see that race, I want to remind you, take an opportunity now to join NHRA. You get 48 issues of National Dragster for just $52 a year. Plus, if you make the call right now, you'll receive free Drag Racing 94. Call the number on your screen now. The number 1 and 2 points leaders in the Winston Chase meeting here in the final round. This entire category has been punctuated by staging battles all day long. Will it happen here? No, Warren Johnson breaks first. Jim Yates is in. Johnson wins this one on his driving ability. His elapsed time, 7.20. His speed, 193 miles an hour. Our replay shows you a slight advantage going to the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile in the far lane. That was just enough, some 0.04 of a second, to hold off the charge of the quicker Jim Yates in the McDonald's Pontiac. His elapsed time, 7.19 seconds, about 100th of a second quicker than Warren Johnson. So the margin of victory, just a car length.
I don't care how many championships you win, you still got to have a little bitty ego. You won it on a hole shot, and that's fun.
Oh, I'll tell you, we had to win it. We knew Jim was hungry out there. You know, this Winston Championship was going to go right down to the wire. And we knew he was going to be hungry, so we had to do everything we possibly could. We made some changes in the car trying to improve reaction time. Looks like it worked.
There was no change in the standings in the Winston Chase. W.J. Yates, Kurt Johnson, Ekman, and Schmidt. No change in the standings in Pro Stock. Here's the final in Funny Car. And there's a lot of interest in this race, particularly from the Castrol folks. Earlier, Steve found out why.
Way back in 1984, Team Castrol scored their first ever NHRA national event victory when Larry Morgan won Super Stock at the Cajun Nationals. Since then, with help from drivers like the late Gary Ormsby, Dave Bortman, Butch Leal, David Nickens, Bill Barney, and of course Pat Austin and John Force, they now have 199 wins. If Force can beat Gary Detcham, that will be the double century mark. Force and Castrol can't wait to celebrate.
It'd be nice.
Austin Coyle with a A-OK sign to John Force. Well, Gary Detcham is going to try once again to win here at Brainerd. He lost a year ago to the same man. Same race, same location, same outcome. John Force wins number 200 for Castrol with a fine 528 at 291. Detcham trailing with a 585, probably realized by half track that it was all over except for the Castrol shouting, and lifted as he crossed the finish line. Here we see the replay. Look at John Force just drive away from Gary Detcham. Steve?
John, obviously you'll take the win, but you kind of hate to beat up on Gary Detcham for the second year in a row.
Hate to do it. I've been sweating him all day, and she went out. I didn't know where he was, and it shook real hard, and I had to step off the gas and fell, and it hooked back up, and it ran. But, hey, we've been chasing this Victory Tour 200 for Castrol, and Buddy, John Howell, the guys back home in the office, all our teammates, we pulled it off, and Gary Ormsby up there, we love you. He started this whole deal. It was for him.
Can't add a word to that, Mac.
John's got the lead and extended it over Al Hoffman. Pedregon, Etchels, and Scusa round out the top 5 after 14 of 19 events on this year's Winston Trail.
I'd still be in Australia trying to swim back if it wasn't for Detcham.
John, you're doing a great job. Good
Top
to see you.
Fuel final coming up next. A very serious Mike Clover reflecting the intensity of this final round of Top Fuel Eliminator here at the Champion Auto Stores Nationals. His driver, Tommy Johnson Jr., the Team Mopar car in the far lane, Mike Dunn in the near lane. And Johnson goes up in smoke, and Mike Dunn wins his third in a row, and I know one young lady in Pennsylvania is absolutely thrilled. Mike's daughter, Samantha, gets a present every time her dad wins a race. So, Sam, you got another one coming your way. He did it in fine style, 495 at 291 miles an hour. All day long, he's been the picture of consistency from the #1 qualifying spot to the championship. Mike Dunn.
I cannot believe it. The entire scenario I painted at the top of this show has come true. Michael, congratulations.
You were actually right for once, huh? That's great. No, I gotta thanks everybody, the crew, sponsors, La Victoria, Mopar, Mac Tools, Winnebago, Kindle GT1, Goodyear, all the guys that support us this year. Gotta say thanks. Frank Bradley and crew did a great job. Samantha, she's cleaning me out this year, boy. I mean,
Another pony?
oh, no pony. She's got enough horses, but she's getting a lot of accessories for the ponies, you know. And I want to say hi to Daryl and Lisa. You know, they haven't been the last couple races, and you know, Daryl's home. He's telling me, you know, he's working on sponsored programs and making babies. He says it's hard work, but I kind of find that hard to believe. But just wanted to say hi, and we'll see you guys at Indy. Daryl and everybody will be at Indy, and hopefully we can win that one too.
Speaking of babies, Mike's wife Sandy is expecting their second.
Steve, Mike Dunn's looking plenty strong for Indy. Scott Kalitta still the leader. Corey Mack second, but things are really tightening up in the Top Fuel chase. Dixon and Johnson, 4th and 5th. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Champion Auto Stores Nationals has been brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan, saying so long from Brainerd International Raceway. Coverage of the Champion Auto Stores Nationals has been a production of Diamond P Sports in association with ESPN.